Raymond Onami, Director of Governance at SimCorp. Thank you.
Cool.
Welcome.
Thank you.
Welcome.
So many years ago, I applied for a role of Director of Data Governance at a large Canadian retail corporation that would go unnamed. I knew the competition would be tough, strong candidates, impressive resumes, great experience, so I wanted a way to stand out and to make sure that they remembered me, something about who I am and what I stand for. So before the interview, I decided to go buy a soccer ball. The day came, I arrived in the lobby with my portfolio in one hand and the soccer ball in the other, and the hiring manager came down from the lobby, took me up to the conference room, and led me there where I discovered that the Chief Information Officer for North American Operations was going to be part of the hiring panel. It's not exactly what I expected, but the soccer ball came with me anyway, so I sat down and put it right in the center of the table. So we went through the standard and usual introductions and those questions, and as we talked, I noticed the CIO and the hiring manager kind of glancing at the ball every so often. So after a few minutes, I took my chance. I took my opportunity. I said this. So you're probably wondering why I brought this soccer ball. So then I explained. If a customer comes to your website or goes to one of your stores looking for a football, what they get back depends entirely on how your product data is defined. If the system treats this, a spherical black and white ball, as a football, but the customer is expecting this, the brown oval-shaped North American football, you've just created confusion. An associate might confidently bring the wrong product, the customer might push back, maybe it becomes an argument, and because it's football, it could get really ugly. Maybe they leave annoyed, deciding to shop elsewhere where someone understands what a real football is. That's what data governance is all about. I looked at them and silence. I think I just blew their minds away. I'm Raymond Onami. I'm the Director of Data Governance at SimCorp. SimCorp is a Canadian company established by our three shareholder banks, RBC, BMO, and TD, with the goal of creating this shared entity to modernize and streamline their middle office operations. And through this partnership, SimCorp has delivered critical services such as payment processing, customer communications, and financial fraud detection. We serve a wide range of clients from insurance, financial services, education, utilities, and all three levels of government. And today, we're at the forefront of one of the most exciting transformations in the financial industry, open banking. Open banking has already gained momentum around the world, and now Canada is joining that movement. And being in the position where we can help enable the secure sharing of financial data across this ecosystem, it's exciting, places SimCorp right at the leading edge of this new era. And so my goal for the next few minutes is to share 3 practical approaches we've used to build a strong, positive, impactful perception of the data governance function. So let's start with the first one, relationships. When people talk about data governance, the conversation usually jumps straight to policies, metadata, lineage. But the truth is, the most sophisticated data catalog in the world is useless if the person who needs to use it doesn't trust the person who built it. And what I've learned is that the real secret sauce of a high-performing governance function isn't just technical expertise, it's people skills. You have to understand your stakeholders as human beings, what keeps them up at night, what frustrations cause them to want to whip their laptop out the window, and what goals they're chasing this quarter. If they don't trust you, they won't trust the standards you're trying to implement. Your policies will look like red tape, not guardrails. And this starts with your own team. Applies, actually, everybody here. So when I hire, I look for 3 non-negotiables: smart, nice, and curious. Smart, not just about IQ or knowing SQL, I mean contextual intelligence. The ability to see the why behind the data. It's being able to translate complex requirements into clear business value. The way to think 2 to 3 steps ahead. Nice. Kindness matters. Small things matter. It's like sending that cat emoji to lighten a coworker's busy Tuesday. It's remembering work anniversaries. Being nice builds psychological safety, and that is essential for collaboration. Curious. Curiosity means listening more than talking. My wife tells me God gave you 2 ears and 1 mouth, so you listen twice as much as you talk. It's the instinct to ask why until you fully understand the root cause instead of jumping to conclusions or band-aid solutions. But at the end of the day, we don't just manage data, we partner with the people who create it, who use it, who make decisions on it every day. And that work requires a foundation of trust, the most important asset in any governance practice. If I get the opportunity, I'd love to share with you this theory I have around the economics of data trust. Maybe next time. But I connected with their sales team. They're the fun ones. They have a gong symbol that resonates through the entire floor. Back in the summertime, I had lunch with one of their managers, Kelsey, and I found out her best friend wrote a children's book. She's a yoga instructor. She's watched the F1 movie multiple times, and she refers to AI with the pronoun he. Enterprise risk management, not a typical interesting team, but I've had so many Starbucks with Tom. I found out about his life as a Kung Fu instructor, his journey going from an accounting background into enterprise risk, and how many times he's been to Japan more than me. But the point is that all of us here as leaders, we need to model this and take the time to get to know people on a different level, on a human level. We're all on the same team. We all have lives outside of work. Not everybody opens up, but you won't know until you just reach out and build those connections. The reason why we prioritize relationship is because we operate in a federated model. And in this federated world, authority is distributed. I don't own the data, the business domains do. Most federated models don't fail because the strategy is wrong. They fail because the trust pipes get clogged. If trust isn't flowing from your data governance office to your domains, and more importantly, between those domains, the entire system slows down. Connections and trust are the social currency that make federation possible. Without trust, domains become silos, and governance starts to feel like an outside intrusion instead of a shared advantage. But when trust is the foundation, here's how it transforms governance into a source of innovation. Velocity through autonomy. In a high-trust federated model, you don't need to micromanage every data decision. We trust the domains to follow the spirit of the standards. They have the authority to move fast, experiment, innovate in their space. The data contract mindset. Innovation only happens when data moves seamlessly across the organization. For example, marketing needs sales data, who needs finance data, who needs operations data, it flows. That exchange requires trust. One domain must trust that the other is maintaining the quality of the data that they're handing over. Reducing defensive data behaviors. When trust is missing, domains hoard data, or they quietly clean to hide the flaws. When trust flows, people feel safe about being honest about their gaps. And that honesty allows us to fix root causes together, clearing the path for reliable enterprise-wide insights. And from policing to partnership, trust shifts from the central team's role from enforcer to accelerator. Instead of asking, will I get in trouble for this? Are you just going to slow me down? The domains start asking, how can you help me do this faster? Your technical architecture is only as strong as your human architecture. So once you build the relationships, you have to earn the right to stay in the room. And you do that through relevance. Data governance often fails because we speak data ease, schemas, master data, lineage, but the business speaks in outcomes. And to become a true enabler, we have to learn their language and their way of working. Building a bridge between a data foundation and a business goal, that's more of an art. And our job is to translate these rigid data principles into something usable, usually negotiable, because every team is at a different level of data maturity. We don't push or pull the business. They already have enough pressure from the market and from the C-suite. Instead, we walk alongside them, not as a barrier to creativity, but as a wind at their back. There's a quick story. So I remember being in the room with sales and marketing team to talk about lead generation, and within 5 minutes, I realized I was in a foreign country without a map. To me, SQL means structured query language. And to marketing, SQL is a sales qualified lead. So when I asked about the status of their SQLs for their sales data, we were having two completely different conversations. Another example is TCV, total contract value. To finance, that's a long-term liability. To sales, they saw that as their ticket to having lunch with the president. And marketing saw this as a metric for turnover ROI. And the biggest revelation came inside Salesforce, digging into that data. We were trying to define a customer. Sounds simple. It wasn't. Marketing, a customer is anyone who downloaded product collateral. Sales, customer sees this as an opportunity with a 70% chance of closing. And to our client account management team, a customer was someone with an active contract. So forcing a single rigid definition would have broken their workflows. But by walking with them, we realized the truth. Context is the most important metadata. We heard that a lot yesterday. We didn't need one definition. We actually needed more of a map showing how a lead matures into an opportunity and eventually becomes a contracted client. And once we learned their acronyms, their Salesforce cycle, their language, something shifted. We stopped being the data people, and we became the people who help us understand our pipeline. So why relevance is the fuel for governance? Context over control. Can't stress this enough. Data without context is noise. When we understand business intent, governance becomes usable and not restrictive. We apply the right guardrails at the right stage of their life cycle. Reducing cognitive load. When our catalogs, definitions, and dashboards uses the business's acronyms, we lower the barrier to entry. People use data more when it sounds like them and not like a textbook. Adoption through value. When stakeholders see that governance helps them distinguish between a sales qualified lead and a database query, they become our advocates in governance. You're not forcing a tool. They see you helping them win deals, hit their targets, and tell clear stories. So we've got relationships, we've got relevance, lastly, roadmaps. My journey into data governance wasn't linear. In university, I majored in geography. And looking back, it was kind of the perfect preparation for this career. And I've been inspired by the Canadian philosopher Marshall McLuhan, who famously said, "The medium is the message." He also talked about maps of meaning and the idea that in a world of complexity, people need shared maps in order to navigate that chaos. And these maps, they're not just drawings, they're what make coordinated action possible. A lot of talk about change management, coordinated action. So in my role, I asked to see everyone's roadmaps. Product development, IT, risk, the PMO, they're just in spreadsheets. Others look like a high-tech treasure map. My favorite is from the strategy team, clean, simple, honest. And because we built trust, they share their real aspirations and not the sanitized versions. The part that most people miss is this. The magic isn't in the individual maps. The magic is in bringing them together. And data governance is uniquely equipped for that because we live in a world of lineage. We're used to staring at the spaghetti of data flows, and when we overlay everyone's map together, we start to see the intersections, the roadblocks, the detours, and the tangents. that nobody else sees. Lately, everybody's roadmap has AI plastered all over it, bold font, flashy animations, lots of buzzwords, but what's almost always missing, or written in tiny gray italics, is the word data. And that's where governance adds value. We remind people that the intelligence in AI is only as strong as the information feeding it. If the data is, can I get an amen? If the data is wrong, incomplete, misaligned, duplicated, inconsistent, misunderstood, AI is not going to fix it, it's going to amplify it. Roadmaps aren't just planning tools, they are the engine of innovation. And there are 3 reasons I'll cover. Creating meaning before movement. Your data governance roadmap shouldn't be a checklist of tasks or a list of tools you want to buy. It should define what data means to the organization, the milestones that build trust, and the moments that spark possibility. So we intentionally avoid putting technologies on our map. Instead, we make the destination clear. Because when people know where they're going, they feel safe enough to innovate. Sorry, one back. Shaping data behavior. When we look at other teams' roadmaps, we're not hunting for deadlines. We look for behavior. We look for points on their journey where they could speed up and accelerate. We look for parts where reuse matters, accountability is there, and ethical data use. That's essential. We just heard it, data governance by design. And so by knowing where these touch points are, we can advise those teams on where they can take the calculated risks, where maybe they need to slow down a little bit to protect the data and earn trust. Shared maps, they enable innovation at scale. When you see that, shared understanding, that's a superpower. When everyone is looking at the same map, you remove the friction and the anxiety of the unknown. And our governance guardrails aren't designed to slow the car down. They're the safety barriers on a racetrack. And they let the organization know where they can redline and rev that engine because everyone knows exactly where the edges of the track are. Okay, I want to leave you today by finishing the story I started earlier, the one about the job interview that didn't go exactly as planned. So I remember sitting there, strange cocktail of feelings, nervous, mixed with probably a lot of overconfidence. I had come prepared with what I thought was a brilliant idea, the soccer ball. To me, it really is the perfect metaphor for metadata management and definitions, and I thought I just blew their minds. So I laid it out there, I went through my analogy, and I delivered that punchline, and then silence. Maybe not the polite kind of silence, not the thoughtful silence. It felt like an eternity, might have been really only 3 or 4 seconds. But finally, the CIO cleared his throat and said, anyways, and moved on to the next question. Now, in that moment, I was crushed. Now, I might add that it was just over a year later, I had lunch with a colleague that worked at that same company, and his colleague recognized me as the idiot with the soccer ball. So I guess I did leave an impression. But looking back, especially in light of all that we've talked about today, I realized exactly why that soccer ball deflated. First, there was no relationship. I was a complete stranger in that room. I hadn't built any connections. I hadn't earned their trust. And without that foundation, they were not ready to buy into my vision, no matter how clever my soccer ball analogy was. No relevance. Sure, the metaphor made sense in my head, but I didn't know their language yet. I hadn't done the work to understand what mattered to them, what frustrated them, what kept them up at night. And because I didn't speak their dialect, my message was just noise. And finally, without trust and without relevance, there's no roadmap. You can't paint a picture of the future if people don't believe you understand where they stand today. So I share that story because I don't want your data governance strategy. Please share that as you will. I don't want it to become a anyways moment. But if you want to be an enabler of innovation, if you want to transform your spaghetti of data into a map of meaning, if you want people to follow you, start with the people. Learn their acronyms, walk alongside them, build shared maps together, because when you speak their language, you earn their trust, and connect your work to what matters to them, that's when the art of the possible becomes a reality. Thank you. I do have a couple minutes to answer any questions, like, did I get the job? No, I did not get the job, of course, but yeah, question in the back.
Hi, thank you. Very interesting presentation. I was wondering, in your experience, when you ask to see the roadmaps of the different groups and you build those relationships, do you ever get resistance from people that look at you as if you're trying to do their job, or what are you talking about? This is not your domain. Leave me alone. Do you ever feel that you can have those reactions from people?
Yes, yes, even though I've talked about. So one example is privacy. Obviously, because it's privacy, they like to keep things private, et cetera. So there was a little bit of pushback. And interestingly enough, like when we did get to see their roadmap and see what they're looking for, they had on there about upcoming privacy legislation, and they talked about anonymization in there. Curiosity. I started asking a lot of those questions. What does this mean? Like de-identification, et cetera. And once we built that little bit of a bridge that I was there to kind of learn a little bit more, the walls came down. And then we were like, hey, can we help sponsor a data anonymization tool for the enterprise? And they were like, yes. And then all of a sudden, because it was on their roadmap and we were sharing that, our machine learning engineers and AI, they were all like, hey, hey, hey. And all of a sudden, they were beginning to. So once that was a critical piece. The other part in the company that's usually hard to break through is legal. I love lawyers, but they tend to be very guarded. And again, it was kind of coming back down to, can you help me understand what's in the contract? And because there's definitions in there. We need to know that. And we started building those shared connections. All of a sudden, of course, our marketing team was big on that. And that connection, it just needs a couple, but eventually they begin to say, hey, what's going on over there? Data governance isn't the enemy, they're our friend. Good question. Alors, déjeuner pour? Oh, that's a question, sorry.
I got a small question. I was wondering, who is your point of entry that you talk to? Because there's a lot of people that want to get engaged with the data, but do you go right away the highest in the hierarchy you can go, or you talk really to subject matter expert, for example?
A couple tips that I have is that I pay attention to, you know, those employee welcome to the company things? I'm right there. I'm like, hi, I'm from data governance. Let me introduce myself. So that's always, and it doesn't matter who. It doesn't matter what level. The ground is level when it comes to data, right? There's none of this hierarchy piece of it. So it really comes to anybody. And the other part of it is, it is hard to kind of break through that kind of senior executive level. I find it's, I think we talked about it before, it's like all they want is a number or a specific, they just, none of this other stuff. So that tends to be a little bit harder to get through. But what I have found is that no matter where I go, if it's front line, first or second line, they start to say, hey, you know, Jill from the data governance team, I don't know what they're doing there, but it's kind of cool. You want to talk to, and all of a sudden that gets around there, you get momentum, exactly, and it spreads out organically. So start anywhere, that's what I would say, but start like now. Okay? Thank you.
There is a question.
Oh, I can't see the pillar. Okay.
Thanks. I'm going to ask a very hard and maybe practical questions. So in the reality, I know you talk about how important the trust is between business and data governance people, but in the real world, often the two parties hated each other because data governance often asked business to do some actual work while the business treated as just admin job and saying, hey, we're doing perfectly fine, but the truth is they aren't. So when the situation where the trust is already broken, what is your advice for things like that?
Hugs. Lots and lots of hugs. I'm just kidding there. So my advice is humility. And it is tough when I'm like they see me as a senior leader, as a manager, et cetera. But humility goes a long way. And I might tell them the soccer ball story just to kind of say, you know what, I've made mistakes as well, but I've learned from them. When I kind of found that piece of it really breaks down. And it's a lot of, my best friend's a therapist, and I've known him since kindergarten, and he has said a lot about what it means to like your body language and like all these little things. You think, okay, should we talk about technicalities? But that really goes a long way just to inject a little bit of humility. And once rebuild those relationships. Once you build those connections, you'll find that the second part, which is relevance, and you'll kind of find out a little bit more about what's an angle, what's a way that I can get in there to be able to make some corrective actions there. So hopefully that helps. Thank you.
All right. Well, thank you. Don't go yet. Don't go yet, Raymond. Thank you. So first of all, A+ in storytelling. I want to tell you that. It was very interesting. You look like a wonderful person to work with. Also, we've been seeing the whole, yesterday, today, a lot of centricity on people. You also show that, trust people. But I also wanted to tell you something. I think the soccer ball was brilliant.
I didn't come up with it. I saw it at a conference one day, and then it was great.
Yeah, and I think it, not just a story for today, but I think that maybe also sometimes it's the audience, right? Maybe what the whole story takes you is that's not the right people you should be working with. I think that, you know, like that attitude they had towards something very creative, it was maybe the wrong attitude. And I think like I would have been like, oh yeah, like this is like a very good way to expose something which is storytelling, and anybody beyond the data environment will understand this in the business. This person can communicate with the business, which in data governance is the bread and butter of the job. So yeah, I don't think that you should feel like you did wrong. I think that you should feel that you did it with the wrong people, which is different.
Good call.
So I think it was a very good way to break the ice. Just, you know, like I said,
thank you.
Not
Appreciate
with the right people, but good that you're not working with that. Probably you have better bosses now. So thank you.
Thank you.
Nice to meet you.